Tactical Air Navigation, TACAN, is a navigation system for military aircraft that provides the pilot with the bearing and distance to a ground or airborne station. It operates on the same principles of the civil VORDME system, but TACAN is more accurate. For military use, the drawback of TACAN is that it depends on the availability of ground stations, and, for moving TACAN platforms, their radio emissions can give away their position to the enemy. This training covers the following subjects. Set up our TACAN receiver using the UFC. Navigating towards a ground TACAN station, over a given radial. Intercept a tanker aircraft using TACAN. Press space bar to begin the training. TACAN navigation requires the master computer to be in Nav Master mode. Press the highlighted button to switch to that mode now. OK, Nav Master mode is now active. On this mode, TACAN employs the UFC for configuration, while it displays its navigation cues on the HUD, the ADI, and the HSI pages. Next, we will display both the ADI and HSI, to explain how to interpret their TACAN symbology. On the left MPD, call up the ADI page by clicking on its menu button, and then clicking on the ADI button. On the same way, call up the HSI page on the right MPD, by clicking on its menu button and then selecting the HSI button. OK, now that you have the master mode and displays prepared, I have unpaused the sim. Level out the aircraft and adjust throttle to maintain a 400 to 450 knot speed. On the UFC main menu, we can check the TACAN status by checking the highlighted display. TCN off tells us that the TACAN equipment is currently off. You can tune a TACAN station and power on the system with a single operation. First, type on the scratchpad the channel number of the desired TACAN station. On this example we will tune the TACAN of Tonopah test range, 77 X-ray. Input 77, using the UFC keypad. Good, now press the PB2 button, next to the TACAN status display. This will automatically enable the system, using the X-band and transmit-receive mode. Pressing PB2 a second time will open the UFC TACAN menu. Do it now. This is the TACAN channel. Pressing its button alternates between X-band and Y-band. Try it, but leave it at 77X. The next three buttons selects the TACAN mode. AA is air-to-air mode, used when air refueling. TR is transmit-receive mode, which provides both bearing and distance to the station. REC is receive only, which provides only bearing, but it can be used without being detected by the enemy. The one with the asterisk is the currently selected mode. For this mission, make sure to select TR, press spacebar to continue. The program feature is not simulated yet. In the real aircraft, it leads to a submenu that permits storing up to 12 TACAN stations, similar to the UHF radio presets. Finally, the highlighted display tells us that the TACAN system is now active. Press spacebar to continue. As soon as the TACAN is functional, it will appear in the HSI, even if the TACAN navigation steering mode is not yet selected, and is represented by the symbol shown on the left. As we are quite far from the TACAN station, you might need to adjust the HSI range with the highlighted buttons in order to have it visible. Do it now. Press spacebar once the HSI symbol is displayed. On the perimeter of the compass rose, the highlighted marker denotes the current TACAN bearing. Press spacebar to continue. Just over the TCN button, the TACAN data block is also displayed, with information about the selected channel, bearing, distance in nautical miles, and time of arrival. If the TACAN station is disabled or out of range, the respective fields of the TACAN data block will show off. Press spacebar to continue. At this point, the HSI is displaying the TACAN position in relationship to our aircraft, and to reach it you would just have to turn the aircraft, until the TACAN marker is at our 12 o'clock position, towards the nose of our aircraft. However, arriving to a TACAN station from just any direction is not very useful. On this case we have tuned the TACAN of Tonopah Test Range Airbase, which has a single main runway on directions 314 degrees or 145 degrees, so it would make sense for us to arrive there coming from one of those two directions. TACAN steering mode provides us with a navigation aid that does just that, displaying navigation cues to allow flight interception of any given TACAN radial, and subsequently following it towards or away from the station. Enable this steering mode by clicking once on the TCN button. Its legend will become boxed to denote it is active. Be careful, as a further click will enable course (CRS) steering mode instead, as the two steering modes share this button. If needed, click it until TCN is boxed. Press spacebar once TCN is boxed. As we currently are south of Tonopah, we should try to arrive to its TACAN coming on a course of 314 degrees. To enter this course on the HSI, first type 314 on the scratchpad. Do it now. Good, now press either PB14 or PB15 to assign that value to the course (CRS) field. The HSI can display its steering cues in two ways. By default it is currently using course deviation indicator (CDI) as shown next to PB20. I've paused the mission again, in order to have time to properly describe the navigation cues that the TACAN steering mode provides. On CDI mode, a course pointer line is drawn through the middle of the aircraft, with a small triangle indicator serving as a reminder of whether this line points to, or from, the TACAN station. The course deviation indicator, CDI, line segment, moves away from the course pointer, the further the aircraft is from the desired course. The dots to the left and right from the course pointer represent a 5 degrees deviation each. If the CDI is aligned with the course pointer, the aircraft has intercepted the desired course and you must turn the aircraft towards the course bearing. In practical terms, the course setting is the selected TACAN radial on which the aircraft should be approaching or flying away from the station. The CDI shows how many degrees off of the radial the aircraft is. As the aircraft gets closer to the radial, the CDI will start moving towards the set course pointer and vice versa. Press spacebar to continue. Many of the same TACAN steering cues of the HSI are also replicated on the HUD. A small deviation arrow mirrors the CDI position on the HSI, together with 5 dots, the middle one corresponding with the position of the aircraft. A vertical bank steering bar is shown, giving the pilot a visual designation for intercepting the selected TACAN radial. The HUD TACAN data block shows the channel, distance to TACAN station in nautical miles, and time of arrival. Press spacebar to continue. On the ADI, the same vertical bank steering bar of the HUD is shown, providing steering for intercepting the selected TACAN radial. Please note that, even in the TCN steering mode, the ADI command heading marker still shows the bearing to the currently selected steer point, not the TACAN. Press spacebar to continue. Press push button 20 to change the HSI display mode from course deviation indicator, CDI, to plan view. On plan mode, the set course arrow is drawn through the center of the TACAN station symbol, rather than through the center of our aircraft. As with CDI mode, this arrow corresponds to the course setting, which is set on the same way as we did for CDI mode. On plan mode, there is no deviation line, nor to, from, indication. Plan mode gives a more straightforward representation of aircraft's position in relation to the TACAN station, and the desired course that needs to be intercepted, with less moving elements on the screen. Press spacebar to continue. The HUD displays the same steering cues as with the CDI mode. A small deviation arrow that mirrors the set course arrow of the HSI. A vertical bank steering bar, to provide the pilot with a visual designation for intercepting the selected TACAN radial. And the same TACAN data block, showing the channel, distance, and time of arrival. Press spacebar to continue. The ADI, on plan mode, displays the same steering cue as with the CDI mode, a vertical bank steering bar, to provide the pilot with a visual designation for intercepting the selected TACAN radial. Press spacebar to continue. I have unpaused the simulator, so that we can practice the interception of a TACAN radial. For this training mission, we will use the CDI display format of the HSI. Press push button 20 until its legend shows CDI. Good, now maneuver the aircraft onto a heading perpendicular to the course pointer line. 314 minus 90 equals 224 degrees. As Tonopah's TACAN is to the west of our position, this heading should lead us to intercept the radial. Okay, you are now on a proper heading. Keep the aircraft straight and level until the CDI starts to move towards the course pointer line. If you want, you can accelerate time by using the keys right Ctrl plus Z. You are nearing the interception point, so I have disconnected the time acceleration. Note how the CDI has begun to move towards the course pointer line. The dots to the left and right from the course pointer represent a 5 degrees deviation each. Once you are at less than 5 degrees of deviation, initiate a turn towards the 314 degrees heading. Strive to align the CDI with the course pointer line. Good. After having intercepted the TACAN radial, you are now headed towards the station. Be sure to follow the course deviation indication to ensure that you are not deviating too much from the radial. You can observe on the TACAN data block how the distance to the station is diminishing. You are 30 nautical miles from the TACAN station. Initiate a shallow descent to arrive at Tonopah at an altitude of around 10,000 feet to have visual confirmation that we have actually located it as intended. You are now at 20 nautical miles from the TACAN station. Continue the descent to arrive at Tonopah at an altitude of around 10,000 feet. If you zoom the view, you should be able to see Tonopah test range up ahead. At 10 nautical miles from the station, we can see that even though the approach radial is 314 degrees, the runway is actually on a heading of 324 degrees, so once nearer the airbase, you can make a small turn to the right in order to overfly the runway. Do not land, just overfly the runway and then initiate a climb back up to at least 10,000 feet. Note that as you overfly the TACAN station, which is to the left of the runway, the direction indicator on the HSI will change, to denote that we are now flying away from the station, and the TACAN distance will begin to increase. This completes your practice with a TACAN ground station, where you have successfully intercepted a given TACAN radial, and then followed it through until overflown the station. Now climb back up to at least 10,000 feet, to continue with our TACAN training. Next, we will practice tracking a moving airborne TACAN station by intercepting a tanker aircraft over Nevada. I've activated a KC-135 tanker aircraft to practice with. It is flying at 20,000 feet, at 200 knots, with a 150 degrees heading. Its TACAN station is set to channel 60 Yankee. To retune our TACAN receiver, enter 60 on the scratch pad. Now press push button 1, its display will change to TCN 60X. Press push button 1 again, to change it to 60 Yankee. Good, we are now tuned to the tanker's TACAN channel. On real life, for airborne operations our TACAN would employ air-to-air mode and the tanker's TACAN station would only provide bearing information, as it lacks the DME device to provide distance information. However, on DCS the airborne TACAN has a bug that prevents it from working on air-to-air or REC modes. It will only work on transmit-receive mode, so be sure to keep that mode selected. Now, turn the aircraft towards the heading indicated by the course pointer line shown on the HSI. At the same time, initiate a climb towards the 20,000 feet ceiling that the tanker is flying at. If the sun makes the HUD difficult to read, remember that you can lower your helmet visor with left shift plus N. The same keys will raise the visor. You are within 30 nautical miles from the tanker. You are now at 20 nautical miles from the tanker. If you can't see the tanker visually, you can toggle aircraft labels with left shift plus F2. The tanker is now within 10 nautical miles. You are now at only 5 nautical miles from the tanker. Good, you are now within 1 nautical mile of the tanker. Congratulations, this successfully concludes the TACAN navigation training. Press spacebar to end the mission.